The apparition on Route 66. Highway Patrol, Arizona. I've been a highway patrol officer for nearly 12 years, and in that time, I've seen just about every kind of accident you can imagine. But nothing, not DUI wipeouts, not overturned semis, not even the flash floods that swallow cars whole, prepared me for what happened that night on Route 66, just outside the small town of Kingman, Arizona. I still run that stretch of highway every week, and every time I pass mile marker 242, my hands tighten around the wheel on their own, like some part of me expects to see her again. It was late September, the kind of night where the desert winds blow sand across the asphalt like thin sheets of smoke. The radio was mostly dead, except for the occasional bark from dispatch, and I was cruising along at a steady 60 miles per hour, keeping an eye out for stranded drivers and the usual coyotes darting across the road. I remember the moon was barely hanging above the ridgeline, a thin silver blade cutting through the darkness. Out in the desert, sound doesn't travel the way it should. Everything feels too quiet, too paused, like the whole landscape is holding its breath. Around 1:18 a.m., I got the call. Possible vehicle rollover, unknown injuries, lone caller, signal breaking up. Coordinates put it somewhere northeast of Kingman, right along the long, empty curve near the abandoned gas station locals call Rusty Jack's. That place had been boarded up since the early 90s. After a fire, nobody bothered to investigate. Something about the building always gave me the chills, even during daylight, but duty's duty. So I hit the lights and punched the accelerator. Sure enough, a white sedan was half buried in the ditch when I arrived, tilted sideways on its frame, windshield spiderwebbed, but not shattered. Smoke wasn't rising, no fluid leaks, no sign of fire. Just a quiet, still wreck under the desert moon. As I approached, flashlight raised, I spotted her standing beside the passenger door. A woman, mid-20s, maybe early 30s, long dark hair matted against her shoulders, wearing a pale blue dress that seemed way too clean for someone who just crawled out of a crash like that. "Ma'am?" I called out, trying to sound steady. "Are you injured?" She turned her head slowly toward me, like someone who hadn't heard her name in years. But the moment her eyes met mine, the desert felt 20 degrees colder. She wasn't crying. She wasn't panicked. She just looked tired. And her skin had a strange dullness to it, like moonlight hit her, but refused to reflect. "I'm fine. I need help." Her voice sounded far away, like it wasn't coming from her at all. I stepped closer, scanning the area for anyone else who might have been in the car. "Where's the driver? Was it just you?" She raised one trembling hand and pointed to the passenger window. "He's still inside. I couldn't wake him." My stomach twisted. I moved past her to check the vehicle, leaning inside with my flashlight. The passenger seat was empty, clean. No blood, no indentations, no sign anyone had been sitting there seconds earlier. When I backed out of the car, she was already standing farther down the road, facing the highway, dress fluttering in the desert wind like it had a life of its own. I called out again, but she didn't answer. Instead, she lifted her arm and pointed down Route 66 toward Kingman. "He's waiting for me." Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. "Ma'am, I need you to stay where you are," I told her, stepping around the car. "I'm going to call an ambulance. You might be in shock." "No, no ambulance." She took one step toward me, and that's the moment everything inside me froze. Her feet didn't disturb the dirt. Her shadow didn't fall the right way. It stretched sideways, not behind her, even though the moon was to her left. And then I saw the wound, a slit along the side of her forehead, dried blood down her cheek, but it didn't look fresh. It looked old, weeks old. "Ma'am, I need you to—" She vanished. Not ran, not ducked behind the car, vanished, like someone snapped their fingers and erased her from the world. I stumbled backward, breath stuck in my throat. My flashlight shook in my hand. I swept the beam across the asphalt, the desert shrubs, the broken road reflector, but she was gone. Gone as if she had never stood there at all. Seconds later, my radio crackled. Static, then dispatch. "Unit 721, be advised. Report confirms a fatal rollover at your location. Female victim pronounced deceased by fire and rescue at 23:44 hours. I stared at my radio, heart pounding. "Dispatch, say again." "Copy. 721. Victim recovered earlier tonight. Local EMTs arrived before highway patrol. Woman was found unresponsive, deceased, single occupant." "But," I started, but the words stuck. I looked back at the sedan. The passenger door I'd seen her standing beside was still sealed shut. Too jammed to have ever been opened. The desert wind picked up. Sand brushed past my legs like something trying to squeeze by. "She needed help," I whispered, "but not the kind any living officer could give." To this day, drivers report seeing a woman on Route 66 near Rusty Jack's, standing alone by a wreck that isn't there anymore. Some say she waves for help. Some say she just stares. And some, the unlucky few, swear she walks right up to their windows. I haven't seen her again, but every time I run that stretch, I check my rear view, just in case she decides to come back.
You're listening to Lurking Moon. If the story keeps you company tonight, please like and subscribe. The Shadow on Red Bridge. Motorcycle Unit, California. I've been riding with the Crescent Ridge Police Motorcycle Unit for 7 years now, and the one thing that's kept me alive on those narrow mountain roads is muscle memory. Brake where you should, lean where you must, and never let the scenery distract you. But on Red Bridge, that doesn't matter. Red Bridge is the one stretch of Crescent Ridge where the rules don't apply, where the forest grows too quiet, the wind moves wrong, and the shadows seem too aware of themselves. Locals call it the bridge that listens, but no one ever told me what it listens for. It was early October, the air already shifting toward that cold, metallic chill the Sierra Nevada mountains get right before winter. I had just finished a DUI traffic stop off Old Pine Road and was heading back toward town. My cruiser bike hummed under me, steady as always, and the pine trees on both sides of the highway blurred into tall, dark columns. I wasn't tired, not really, But something about that night's silence pressed down on me. No owls, no wind, no distant rustle of deer, just the engine and my breathing. Red Bridge appeared ahead like a long, rusted scar stretching across the canyon. It's not actually red, just iron oxide peeling through old paint, but at night it glows with this dull reddish tint that always looks fresh, like it's bleeding from within. I slowed to cross it, mostly out of habit. A lot of wildlife crosses the bridge, and hitting a deer on a motorcycle is a quick way to meet your maker. Halfway across, my headlights flickered. Not off, just a brief pulse, like they inhaled and exhaled. The bike sputtered once, then corrected itself. I frowned, tapping the throttle lightly, testing the responsiveness. Everything seemed fine. Then I saw a shape at the far end of the bridge. At first I thought it was fog, a patch, low to the ground, weirdly localized. But as I got closer, the shape lifted, slowly, and stretched itself upward, like someone rising from a crouch. That's when I realized it wasn't fog at all. It was smoke, or something smoke-like, pitch black and completely unmoving despite the wind that had suddenly picked up around me. I rolled off the throttle, coasting. My radio crackled with static in my ear. The shadow hovered 2 or 3 feet above the asphalt, twisting almost lazily like it was deciding what shape it wanted to take. I kicked the bike into gear and tried to back up, but the engine let out this dry, choking rattle. Throttle dead. Clutch unresponsive. The headlights dimmed again, not flickering this time, dimming like something was sucking the power straight out of them. The shadow drifted closer, and the temperature dropped so fast my breath fogged my visor. My hands shook inside my gloves. Instinct said to run, but years on this job have carved other instincts into me. Stand your ground. Figure it out. Don't panic. So I sat there, straddling a dying motorcycle under the weakest headlights of my life, watching this thing float toward me. The shadow stopped about 5 feet away. It didn't have a face or eyes or anything I could point to and say, that part looked human. But somehow I knew it was looking at me, evaluating me, like a predator deciding whether I was prey. My mouth went dry. I said, "If you can understand me, I'm not here to hurt you." The shadow twitched, just a tiny, sharp movement, like a spasm. Then it dropped, not onto the road, through it, straight down, like a weight sinking in water. The asphalt rippled where it vanished, a distortion like heat waves on the highway, except cold, icy, brittle cold. My motorcycle roared back to life so suddenly I almost dropped it. The headlights flared bright, the radio shrieked with static, and every hair on my arms stood on end. Then I heard it. A whisper, not through the radio, not through the air, inside my helmet. "Daniel." I jerked so hard I nearly toppled over. I ripped the helmet off, gasping for air. But there was no one on the bridge. The shadow was gone. The road ahead was empty, clean, still. Except for one thing. On the guardrail, near the end of the bridge, someone had dragged their finger through the rusted paint, carving a shape into the condensation. 3 long vertical marks, all parallel like claws, but too symmetrical, too deliberate to be an animal. I didn't see anything else that night. I rode back to the station, filed a vague incident report, pretended nothing happened. But I haven't crossed Red Bridge alone since then. Call me superstitious, call me paranoid, but something lives out there. Something dark, something aware. And sometimes, when I ride past the bridge on day shift, I swear those same 3 claw marks appear on the guardrail again, even after the county paints over them. Like it's waiting for me to come back.
Unit 309, The Invisible Passenger. Night Patrol, New Mexico. My name is Officer Lucas Tavares, and I've been with the Night Patrol Division in Gallup, New Mexico, long enough to know that the desert has rules of its own. The wind talks, the darkness wanders, and sometimes, if you're unlucky, the dead feel a little too comfortable riding shotgun. But nothing in my 9 years on the force prepared me for the night Unit 309 decided it wasn't a one-man patrol anymore. The shift started like any other. Quiet. Too quiet. Gallup after midnight is a strange place. Half the town asleep, the other half lingering in doorways or wandering Route 66 like ghosts who forgot they died. I checked my gear, ran diagnostics on the cruiser, and rolled out onto the empty streets with a warm coffee and the low hum of the radio for company. Now, Unit 309 isn't special. It's an older patrol car, sturdy but worn, with that constant dusty smell that never quite leaves your clothes. The kind of car you trust on long highways but don't brag about. I'd had it assigned to me for nearly a year, and I knew every rattle, every quirk in the suspension, every creak in the back seat. At least, I thought I did. Around 2:40 a.m., dispatch asked me to sweep Mentmore Road, a lonely stretch running between abandoned hogans and open desert. Most officers don't like that route. Cars slow down there on their own, radios glitch, and people have reported seeing someone walking along the road only for them to vanish when headlights hit them. I never saw anything more than coyotes and stray dogs, so I didn't think much of it. Until that night. I was halfway down Mentmore, sipping my coffee, when the car dipped slightly on the driver's side rear. Not the front, the back seat. Like someone heavy sat down. The whole frame of the cruiser shifted, a low groan moving through the suspension. I froze mid-sip. There was no mistaking it. That was the exact weight drop of a full-grown person entering the vehicle. My hand tightened on the cup. I didn't turn around, not yet. My voice felt stuck in my throat. Dispatch, 309 checking in. Possible mechanical issue with unit weight distribution. Static. No reply. I tapped the mic. Dispatch, do you copy? Still nothing. The air inside the cruiser grew colder. Not desert night cold, unnatural cold, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes your breath look like smoke. I finally forced myself to look in the rearview mirror. Nothing. But the seat. The seat was depressed, clearly, deeply, like someone weighing at least 200 pounds was sitting behind me,
perfectly still. The temperature dropped again. A soft, rhythmic sound filled the cruiser. Breathing. Slow, steady. Not mine. I swallowed hard. "If someone's back there," I said cautiously, "I'm armed and—" The seat creaked. Loud. Then a finger, an actual visible indentation of a finger, pressed gently against the passenger side window from the inside. Just one press. Like a tap without the sound. "Oh, hell no," I muttered, pulling the cruiser to an abrupt stop. When I hit the brakes, the presence lurched forward in the seat exactly like a real passenger would. The fabric stretched, compressed, moved. Then the rear seat belt lock clicked. Not the belt, just the lock, as if someone were testing it with invisible hands. My pulse hammered in my ears. I turned around fully. "Show yourself," I whispered. The air rippled slightly like heat over asphalt, but cold. A distortion hovered where a body should have been. And then the pressure on the seat rose again, not violent, deliberate, intelligent. "Lucas," a voice whispered. My blood turned to ice water. It wasn't through the radio. It wasn't in the car. It was inside my head. I scrambled out of the cruiser, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I backed away until my boots hit gravel. My breath fogged the night. Inside the car, the empty seat shifted on its own. Then the cruiser's lights flickered, something that hadn't happened once since I had checked the battery before shift. They flickered twice, like a signal. And then the engine shut off. No hesitation, no sputter. Just dead. I stood alone on Mentmore Road, the desert stretching forever on both sides, the silence suffocating. The only sound was the faint metallic ticking of the cooling engine and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. After what felt like minutes, the car lights flared back on. The interior dome light flickered. The seat was no longer depressed. Whatever was in Unit 309 was gone. The radio clicked alive in a burst of static. Dispatch's voice came through crisp and steady. 309, you've been out of signal range for 20 minutes. Status check. My throat barely worked. Dispatch, Unit 309 is experiencing electrical issues. Returning to station. When I drove back, the seat felt empty, light again. But the rearview mirror kept catching something, a flicker of motion in the back seat, a shift of shadow, a ripple of air. Something that wanted me to know it wasn't done. And sometimes when I take a corner too fast or slam the brakes harder than usual, the seat behind me dips again, like my invisible passenger is still riding along.
The Child with No Footprints. Canine Unit, Colorado. My name is Marlene Vega, and there are nights when I still hear that child crying the moment I close my eyes. Working canine for Fort Collins Police Services has put me into every kind of situation. Runaways in the foothills, lost hikers, elderly walk-offs, cases that stick to you but eventually fade. But nothing fades from Poudre Canyon. Nothing ever does. It's the kind of place where the wind doesn't feel like wind at all, more like breath, and where the pine trees shift as if they're listening in. The canyon walls swallow sound too easily, leaving you with the feeling that someone is standing right behind you, even when you know you're alone. The night it happened, snow covered everything in a clean, soft layer. Perfect conditions for scent tracking, perfect for footprints, perfect for finding anyone lost out there. Which is why the 911 report didn't make sense. A child screaming somewhere near Poudre Falls, no cars seen, no hikers reported missing, no reason for a kid to be in that cold, in that wind, in that isolation. I loaded Coda, my Belgian Malinois, into Unit K912, and we headed up Highway 14. The cruiser's headlights carved pale tunnels through the fog rolling in from the river. Coda paced behind me, her tail low, her ears twitching in that uneasy rhythm dogs get when they sense something they don't like but can't name. When I pulled into the turnout near the falls, the world felt muted. No wind, no river sound, not even the usual creaking of the trees. Just a thin cold that wrapped around my spine. K912 on scene, I said into the radio. Beginning grid. Static hissed back. Dispatch confirmed, but their voice felt distant, like it came from underwater. We had barely taken 10 steps when it happened. A scream, sharp, high, slicing through the canyon like a blade. Coda stiffened instantly. Her legs locked, her tail tucked, her nose high. I'd never seen her react like that. She didn't bark, she didn't growl, she just trembled. We followed the sound down the slope, crunching through the untouched snow. The cold deepened the closer we got. The mist drifted across the ground like it had weight. Then I saw him. A child, small, barefoot, standing near a cluster of trees, shoulders shaking as he cried into his hands. "Hey, sweetheart," I called softly. "I'm Officer Vega. I'm here to help you." He didn't react, not at first. His crying stopped, but his hand stayed over his face. He stood there, trembling. Coda pressed against my leg. Her breathing quickened. I tightened my grip on her harness. The boy slowly lowered his hands. His eyes were wrong, sunken, too dark, like shadowed bruises instead of pupils. His skin looked drained of life, the kind of cold pale you see on hypothermia cases. But worst of all, the snow around him was perfect, untouched, a flawless sheet. No footprints leading in, no footprints beneath him, no footprints anywhere. "Are you hurt?" I whispered. The boy stared at me, blinked once, blinked again. Then his mouth opened, and he screamed. Not like a child, not like any living thing. The sound hit me like pressure, vibrating through my teeth, running like liquid ice into my ears. Coda let out a broken whine and tried to pull backwards, dragging me with her. The boy stepped toward us. The snow didn't move. He hovered, no weight, no shift, no indentation, just gliding across the surface as if gravity hadn't noticed him. I stepped back slowly, my pulse slamming against my ribs. "Dispatch, K912, possible." My radio shrieked with distortion. "Marlene, do not. Repeat, do not." Then silence. The boy kept coming. 3 feet away, 2 feet. Close enough that I could see faint puffs of breath drifting from him, but so faint they almost weren't real. He tilted his head, watched me, watched Coda. Then he vanished. Not faded, not blurred, just gone. The crying continued, echoing from the canyon walls, from the trees, from the river, everywhere at once. The sound circled us like a storm trapped in a bottle. I stumbled backwards, gripping Coda's harness as she whined and pressed herself into my leg for protection. When backup arrived almost half an hour later, The crying stopped. Snow looked untouched. The air warmed by a few degrees. Nothing. No child, no tracks, no evidence. But when I returned to my cruiser, I found something waiting for me. Tiny handprints, wet, faint, perfectly shaped, pressed into the trunk of my car. No other marks in the snow, no approach, no retreat, just the hands of a child that left no footprints. To this day, whenever Coda and I patrol Poudre Canyon, she refuses to look out the rear windows. She faces forward, ears pinned, breathing tense. And sometimes, on the coldest nights, I swear I hear that same distant crying from the back seat. Quiet, broken, waiting.
The 911 call from the sky. Dispatch and Patrol, Alaska. My name is Dispatcher Elena Markham, and in the 5 years I've worked for Nome Police Communications, I've heard every kind of panic a human voice can make. Screams, gasps, hyperventilation. The silent terror of someone hiding from a break-in. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the call that didn't come from land, sea, or any registered line. It came from the sky. The night it happened, Nome was in one of its February moods, cold enough to freeze your eyelashes, quiet enough to feel like the whole world was holding its breath. The kind of night where even the usual calls slow down. I was alone on graveyard shift, sipping toffee that tasted like old pennies, and listening to the hum of the servers behind me. Around 2:13 a.m., the board lit up. Not with a number, not with a location. Just incoming 911, unknown source. I frowned. That wasn't supposed to happen. Our system always gives something. Coordinates, cell tower ID, landline address, something. But this just blinked red like a heartbeat. I plugged in my headset. 911, what's your emergency? Static. Heavy. Low. Vibrating through the line like machinery idling in a metal chamber. Then I heard a voice. Except it wasn't a voice. Not human, anyway. It sounded metallic, layered, like someone speaking through a broken synthesizer. The syllables came out clipped, sharp, wrong. To Kate Ed above? I sat upright. Caller, repeat your location? More static. Then another voice overlapped the first, the same metallic distortion, almost as if two signals were fighting over the line. Cannot land. Cannot land. Ice crawled down my spine. This wasn't a prank. Nobody could fake the atmospheric distortion I was hearing. Are you in an aircraft? Silence. Then, a burst of tones, too fast to be Morse, followed by something that sounded like breathing, but not through lungs, through machinery. At the same moment, the mapping screen in front of me flickered, glitching like a corrupted file. A single dot appeared off the grid, far outside any tower range. The coordinates didn't make sense. Nothing should be out there. It showed the signal coming from directly above Nome. Straight up. Thousands of feet. In the air. My pulse hammered. I patched through to the nearest patrol unit. Unit 24, this is dispatch. Do you copy? Officer Max Keller answered immediately, groggy but alert. Copy dispatch. What's up? I have an unidentified 911 call coming from aerial coordinates above town. Are you in a position to scan the sky from Front Street? He paused. Above town? Affirmative. Check for aircraft in distress. Another voice cut through the line. Not Keller, the metallic thing again. Observe. 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 Keller stopped breathing for half a second. Dispatch, who the hell was that? It's the caller. They're still on the line. Does it sound non-human? Yes. Snow hammered the roof as a sudden gust hit the building. A storm wasn't on radar, but the wind roared like something descending fast. Keller spoke again, slightly breathless. Dispatch, I'm on Front Street. Looking up now. A pause. Then, Jesus. There's something above the cloud line. What kind of something? It's shimmering. Not solid, like heat haze, but dark. It's moving too slow to be a plane. The metallic voices grew louder in my headset. Can not remain. Can not remain. Then another phrase, clearer, distorted, but unmistakably directed at us. No footing. No ground. No entry. Keller sucked in a breath. Elena, something just passed over me. I don't see anything solid, but I feel it. The air pressure just dropped. My ears popped. The lights in the dispatch center flickered. Every monitor flashed bright white, then went dark for a second. The temperature in the room dropped enough that I could see my breath. The caller spoke again. This time, only one voice. Slow. Direct. We are not permitted to land. Then another glitch. The coordinates on my screen began rising. Up, 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 as if the source was lifting away from Earth at impossible speed. Keller, I said, my voice cracking. Do you still see anything? He didn't answer. Keller? Finally, softly. It's gone. The 911 signal evaporated. The line went dead without disconnecting. Just silence. The storm outside stopped instantly. No wind. No snow. Not even the sound of distant waves. I logged everything, but the system rejected half the details, as if the data had never existed. The coordinates vanished from the logs entirely. The recording of the call contained nothing but static. Nothing metallic, nothing non-human, just static. But later that morning, Keller came to my desk. His uniform was still dusted with snow. He leaned in close so no one else could hear. It wasn't a plane, he whispered. Whatever was up there didn't have wings. It didn't move like anything built on Earth. Then he added something that has haunted me ever since. When it passed over me, the snow under my boots lifted off the ground. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. And sometimes when I work graveyard shift, the board flashes red for half a second, like a heartbeat. No number, no location, just incoming 911, unknown source. It never connects, but I know they're still up there, listening, trying to make contact, trying and failing to reach the ground. And I'm terrified for the day they finally do.
The Phantom Car of Amarillo, Traffic Division, Texas. My name is Officer Darren McLean, and I've been with the Amarillo Traffic Division long enough to know when something on the road is real and when something is not. I've seen drunk drivers blow through stoplights, teenagers race down Coulter Street like it's the Indy 500, and ranchers haul livestock trailers that look ready to fall apart at the seams. But nothing has ever gotten under my skin like the night we chased the car that didn't exist. It was just past midnight on a Wednesday, the kind of quiet Amarillo gets when all the bars have closed and even I-40 feels like a ghost highway. The wind was kicking dust across the asphalt and my patrol car hummed as I cruised along South Georgia Street, keeping an eye on the usual suspects: late deliveries, stray cattle trucks, and the occasional reckless pickup. Nothing unusual. Then, dispatch crackled through my radio. Unit 14, be advised, multiple 911 calls reporting a silver sedan driving without lights on the loop. Speed estimated over 90. I keyed my mic. Copy that, dispatch. I'll intercept from Sansi. I switched on my lights and slipped onto the access road. Amarillo at night has this strange stillness to it, like the city is holding its breath. Even the street lights flicker differently. The further west you drive, the darker it gets, until the plains swallow everything. I reached Loop 335 in under 2 minutes, and there it was. A silver 4-door sedan, not flashy, not old, just ordinary, drifting across lanes like the driver was sleepwalking behind the wheel. No headlights, no taillights, just the faint reflection of my emergency bar glinting off the trunk. Unit 14, visual on suspect vehicle, initiating pursuit, I radioed. The sedan suddenly accelerated, gliding ahead like it weighed nothing. My cruiser roared as I pushed past 80, then 90, then 95. Even then, I barely gained on it. What struck me immediately was the way it moved. Smooth, too smooth. Cars don't glide like that. They bounce, they vibrate. This one didn't. Driver of the silver sedan, pull over immediately, I called through the PA system. No reaction. Not even a twitch. We approached the Western Street overpass, and that's when the sedan swerved violently into the shoulder. My heart lurched. There was a metal construction barrier along the entire right side of the bridge. A solid slab of reinforced steel hammered into the concrete. The sedan didn't slow down, didn't brake, didn't even fishtail. It passed straight through the barrier. My mind went blank. I hit the brakes so hard the cruiser shuddered, tires screeching across the asphalt as I came to a stop inches from the same barrier the sedan had just dissolved into. Unit 14 to dispatch, I shouted. Vehicle just went through the guard wall. Western overpass. I need additional. My radio erupted with static. Not normal static. This sounded wet, warped, like a whisper caught between frequencies. Then a voice, faint, metallic. Not here. Not living. Not here. I jerked away from the mic. Dispatch? Repeat that? Silence. Then, Unit 14, we didn't transmit. Say again? Cold crawled up my spine. I stepped out of the cruiser, my boots crunching gravel as I approached the barrier. It was solid. Absolutely solid. I ran my gloved hand along the metal surface, cold, real, untouched, no dents, no impact marks, nothing to show a car had ever come near it. Backup arrived, Units 3 and 9. Both officers staring at me like I'd hallucinated the whole pursuit. "There's nothing here, Darren," Officer Leland said. "No skid marks, no debris, nothing." "I saw it," I insisted, "and I have dash cam footage." Except I didn't. When I checked the dash cam, the display was frozen on a single still frame, the moment right before I hit the brakes. The sedan? Gone. Replaced by a smear of static across the screen. We searched for an hour. No vehicle, no driver, no tracks on the dirt roads leading away. Nothing. Then, Unit 9's radio crackled. Same warped static, same metallic whisper. "Still driving, still here." We all froze. Leland swallowed hard. "Tell me that was dispatch." It wasn't. Dispatch confirmed no transmission. We filed the report as a false pursuit triggered by misidentified vehicle. But none of us believed that. Not really. Amarillo officers talk, and over the following weeks, I heard versions of the same story. An old sedan seen cruising the loop with dead headlights, vanishing near the same overpass. Some say it's the car from the fatal pileup back in 1998, the one that got crushed under a semi-truck and burned so hot that the VIN melted. Some say the driver never realized he died, that he's still trying to make it home on the roads he traveled every day. But I know what I saw, and I know what the radio said. That wasn't a person. That wasn't a living driver. That was something stuck on repeat. Something replaying its last drive over and over and over, forever, trapped in a loop of its own. And sometimes, when I clock in for night shift and roll out on the loop, I catch a glint of silver ahead of me. No lights, no plate, just a blur that disappears the moment I look straight at it. I don't chase it anymore, because whatever that thing is, it doesn't want to be caught. The woman at mile marker 19. Mounted Police, Tennessee. My name is Officer Jacob Riles, and I've ridden the trails around Gatlinburg long enough to know what the woods sound like when they're alive, and what they sound like when something's wrong. Horses know it too. They feel it first. They always do. And the night we reached mile marker 19, my horse, Thunder, felt it before I ever saw her. It was late fall, the kind where the leaves rot under a cool dew and the forest floor smells rich enough to choke you. The Park Service had asked for mounted patrol sweeps along a few back trails near Roaring Fork after hikers reported someone crying in the distance. Never a precise direction, just crying, carried on the wind. Gatlinburg draws all kinds of folks, tourists, locals, wanderers who come for the quiet. But crying in the woods after dark, that's always a problem. I saddled up Thunder and started my route just before sundown, letting him take the familiar path. He was calm at first, his ears turning towards cicadas and owls, the usual nightlife orchestra. The amber glow of the sky filtered through the branches, casting those long, thin shadows that make the woods look older than they are. By the time I reached mile marker 17, the air had changed. It thickened. Not with fog, not with humidity, just a stillness that felt unnatural, like the forest was waiting for something. Thunder's ears pricked straight up. His steps slowed. He kept trying to turn his head toward the left side of the trail, into the dark cluster of pines where the undergrowth swallowed the moonlight whole. "Easy, boy," I murmured, patting his neck. "Just the wildlife settling in." But it wasn't. I knew it. Thunder knew it. The woods knew it. We rode another half-mile in that eerie quiet, nothing but the sound of his hooves pressing into damp soil. When we approached mile marker 19, he stopped dead. Not just paused, stopped, rooted to the spot. His breath grew rapid and sharp in the cool air. That's when I heard it. A woman crying, soft, almost polite, as if she didn't want to disturb the forest around her. "Hello?" I called out, my voice breaking the strange stillness. The crying didn't stop. It didn't get louder or closer. It just continued, like it was stuck in a loop. Thunder shifted beneath me, nervous, his muscles tight as steel cables. His eyes fixed on a break in the trees ahead, where moonlight caught the faint outline of a figure. A woman, barefoot, white dress torn at the hem, standing just past the marker, half hidden by the moss-covered trunks. "Ma'am," I said gently, "stay where you are. I'm coming to assist you." She didn't turn. Didn't run, didn't even blink, just kept crying into her hands. Thunder shifted beneath me, nervous, his muscles tight as steel cables. His instincts screamed not to go any closer. "Ma'am, I need to know if you're all right." She turned his head toward us, not fully, just enough that the moonlight hit her face. Her eyes were wrong. Not glowing, not demonic, just empty. So empty they reflected no light at all. Thunder snorted and stumbled backward, nearly unseating me. "Ma'am, I need to know if you're all right." She took a step toward us. The leaves beneath her feet didn't move. The branches around her didn't rustle. The air didn't shift. She wasn't touching the ground. Thunder reared without warning, and I desperately gripped the reins, trying to keep him under control. His hooves slammed down, kicking up loose dirt, and when I looked again, the woman was gone. Not walked away, not ran, just dissolved, like smoke pulled apart by unseen fingers. 1 second there, the next absorbed into the tree line. Thunder bolted several yards before I could calm him. My heart hammered so loudly it drowned out the forest. But then I heard it again. The crying behind us this time. Farther down the trail, the same tone, the same cadence, the same looping sorrow. I spun around, flashlight cutting through the dark. Nothing. No footprints, no movement, no hint of where the voice came from. Just the woods, still and waiting. I radioed into dispatch, trying to steady my voice. Unit mounted 3, possible missing person at mile marker 19, but I need additional units. This is not a standard call. But even as I said it, I knew no one else would find her. The next day, park rangers swept the entire area. No trace of a woman, no footprints, no disturbed vegetation, nothing. Except one thing. At the exact place Thunder had stopped the night before, they found the old wooden mile marker sign lying on the ground, split clean down the middle. No impact, no tool marks, just a perfect split. And no one, not even the senior rangers, could explain how it happened. A week later, another mounted officer heard crying in the same spot. A month later, a hiker reported seeing a woman in white drifting between the pines near dusk. They never found her either. Some say she's the spirit of a woman who vanished up here in the 80s. Others say she's something older, something tied to the land. I don't know what she is, but I can tell you one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever dissolved into those trees that night, it wasn't human. And it's still out there, waiting at mile marker 19.